You see the Pyrex dish? 13 by 9 inches, very standard. I bet you have one too. This is one of the most common tools in home kitchens all over the US. But to me, it's one of the most useless. I pull it out once a year for lasagna, and the rest of the time it's a waste of space. If, however, you like to make casseroles, this Pyrex dish is invaluable because most casserole recipes are formulated for this size. What you should have in your kitchen depends on what you cook. Today we are doing a tool tour of my kitchen. I'll show you everything I have and why I have it. As always, the why is more important than the what. If you want links to most of the products I mentioned, they are in the description below. Okay, let's start with knives. I only use 4 types of knives. Chef's knife for produce and for portioning fish and meat. Boning knife for trimming silver skin on meat, deboning chickens, and removing skin from fish. Paring knife for random trimming that's not done on a cutting board, like trimming beets. Bread knife for, bread. Knife brands are a very long story because they change them all the time. Just watch my missing original video. Knives are also very individual, but at the moment, here is what I've got in my block. Victorinox, Missing, and Zwilling, because I am testing it as a replacement to the original Missing chef's knife. I haven't had it long enough to give you an opinion yet. Here is my right-hand drawer. Thermometers. ThermoWorks makes the best. Must have for tender cuts of meat and poultry. Also, it's a nice to have for yeast doughs. Measuring spoons are kind of obvious. The reason I have multiples is because of cooking classes. When I cook for myself, I only need one, of course. I love these little cups for mixing salt and pepper to apply to fish, meat, poultry, etc. This way I can double dip into this cup without worrying that I'll contaminate my main salt bowl. The fact that these cups are shallow and wide makes it easy to pinch the salt. The honing rod. I wrap mine in a towel so that it doesn't get scratched by any other tools. And here's my little wedge angle guide to make sure I hone at the correct angle. I give my chef's knife a few swipes daily. The video on how to hone is linked in the description below. Tongues for stirring and flipping thick things. I can't live without good tongues. Adlan tongues provide the best grip, and you can buy them with the lock mechanism so that they are easy to store. OXO peeler. I know most people like V peelers, but I'm kind of used to this one. Spatula for flipping thin things. In case you're wondering, where are my silicone tongues and spatulas for non-stick pans? I don't have any. I like metal tongues and spatulas because they provide good control, and I try to be gentle with them. I think a piece of toast actually scratches up your nonstick pan more than the metal spatula. The only solution to this is to periodically replace your nonstick pans. Whisks. I have puffy ones and skinny ones. My favorite whisk is the sturdy Kuhn Recon. I also like that it's skinny and can get into corners of straight-sided pots. That being said, the only thing I make for which it actually matters is pastry cream. Unless you have a specific application that needs a high-quality whisk, no need to splurge on them. You can use the cheap ones. A lemon juicer. This is another tool I use daily. It gets more juice out of citrus than any other juicer I've tried. Even tough limes. Don't forget to place your citrus fruit cut side down. You want the juice to go into the bowl, not into your eyes. Kitchen shears. I only use them for 2 things. Opening boxes of tomatoes. I can't wash my normal scissors, so I don't want to get tomatoes on them, but these I can put in a dishwasher. I also use them to cut out the backbone from a chicken if I want to flatten it. And last but not least is a microplane zester. This produces the finest citrus zest and removes no bitter white pith, but it also is fabulous at grating Parmesan cheese and mashing garlic and ginger into a paste. Another thing I keep right next to my stove is this bucket of spoons. Tasting spoons, serving spoons, silicone spatulas for folding batters, and wooden spoons with a flat edge. My favorite is this one because it's angled just right. I don't understand wooden spoons with holes. They're so hard to wash. Why would you buy them? If you are annoyed that you can't put wooden spoons in a dishwasher, you can replace them with silicone spatulas. My middle drawer doesn't open because of the way my oven was installed. Don't even ask, it's a long story. So let's move on to the bottom drawer. That's the place for less frequently used utensils. Slotted spoons. This is my favorite slotted spoon. If you make fresh pasta or gnocchi, this is a must. It drains quickly and holds a lot. These are my long tongs for grilling. Potato masher for those days when I'm too lazy to put them through a ricer. Is this an Eiffel Tower grater? Why, yes it is. No, I did not buy it. It was a gift and I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. You know, it might be cheesy, but it's actually a fabulous grater for hard cheeses. This weird tool is a Spätzle maker. Those are little German noodles. A box grater. And the most used tools from this drawer are my mandolins. Here is the new one by OXO. It only has 3 settings, but that's all I really need. It's cheap, easy to wash, and if you set it to the lock setting, it's a little safer to store than my old one. Here's the old one, the Benrunner. It's the slicer you'll see in all the restaurant kitchens. Infinite possibilities for thickness, but it's bigger, more expensive, and harder to wash. Make sure you use a cut-resistant glove with any mandolin, otherwise it's like driving without a seatbelt. It's fine, as long as you don't have an accident. This little thingy is great for coring apples and pears, but you can totally live without it. The OXO can opener, this was a gift and it took me forever to figure out how to use it. I even had to watch a video, but once I got it, it's the best can opener ever. No sharp edges, no need to wash it, it's fabulous. This cabinet has my big flat things. I like to store all of them vertically so that I have easy access to each tool. You can get a little vertical storage rack for them at Target. Here are my boards. Boards are a big topic. A video on cutting boards is linked below. Shallow baking sheets are my oven workhorses. I have 2 half sheets and 1 quarter sheet. Cooling racks for baked goods. Also, they are a must for reverse sear method that I love so much for tender cuts of meat. I believe that lids need to be stored vertically too. Otherwise, it's a mess. Pots and pans deserve a pretty serious discussion, and I have a video about them already, linked below. The only thing I want to mention here about them is matching lids to pots. In the US, we have 3 common sizes for both pots and pans, 8, 10, and 12 inches. This means we only need 3 lid sizes. Here's how I acquired them. Most pots are sold with lids. 2, 3, and 4 quart pots are all 8 inches in diameter, so they supplied me with lids for my 8-inch skillet too. My 8 quart stock pot is 10 inches in diameter, so it supplied me with a 10-inch lid that I can use for 10-inch skillets. My 12-inch straight-sided deep skillet came with a lid that I can use for all of my 12-inch skillets. Lids don't have to be great quality. Although I've retired some of my old pots, I've kept the lids. Lids are like earrings. I can still use the same ones I used in college. Unfortunately, I can't say the same thing about jeans. And while we are in this cabinet, here are my mixing bowls. I like light stainless steel ones. Now, the holy things. The one I use the most is the salad spinner. It's not just for salads, it's for anything that's a leaf, from Swiss chard to parsley. Although I have all sorts of colanders, the most useful one is this fine mesh strainer. You can drain anything through it, no matter how big or small. Here is a bunch of tools that don't fit into any particular category, but they're incredibly useful. Squeeze bottles are the best for storing glazes, marinades, and dressings. Potato ricer, a must for gnocchi, and yes, nice to have for mashed potatoes, but not absolutely necessary. immersion circulator, and a box for all my sous vide needs. I know many people view sous vide as a solution to life, universe, and everything. Personally, I think it's only useful for tender cuts of poultry and meat, and some white fish. The moral of the story is don't buy this stuff if you're a vegetarian. The measurement tools. The main one is the scale. I have so much to say about accurate measurement for baking that I have a whole separate video about it, linked in the description below. Can you believe I have measurement cups too? Yeah, I do. Not for baking, God forbid, but they are very useful for grains. Most grain ratios are very easy by volume. For example, most rice types are 1:1. I don't even bother using the wet cup for water when making grains. I use the dry one and I fill it to the very top. I weigh all my wet ingredients for baking, but I love the fact that wet measuring cups have a spout. So to me, they're just little pitchers, good for pouring without making a mess. Okay, let's move on to baking. My most beloved baking tool is parchment paper sold in sheets that fit a standard half sheet. They are awesome. Rolling pin. I know that cool people use the French rolling pin without handles, but I grew up with this one and I like it more. I think this is a total giveaway that I am a cook at heart and not a baker. A flour sifter. Disposable pastry bags for pâte à choux and pastry cream. Pastry scrapers, also known as bench scrapers. They are dull, so you can cut with them directly on your counter. They're also great for scraping the dough off the counter. For those, it's a must-have. Pastry brushes. Most people like silicone, but I feel like I have more control with these ones. Prep cups for small ingredients. Not great for pinching, but great for measuring things out. Pastry tips for pâte à choux. Oven thermometer. This is a sanity check tool. I prefer to just make things multiple times and adjust the temperature and time until I get them right. And of course, write it down. Ovens are unpredictable, with or without thermometers. Offset spatulas for making my Earl Grey fun cake. Once a year. Here is my view on baking utensils. Except for bench scrapers, most of these tools have only one use. People buy them because they want to make pâte à choux once, or a bundt cake once, or a pasta once. It's a complete waste. Once you get a tool, keep practicing so that you get very good at that one thing. I bake only one cake, but it's a very good one. You mastered cream puffs? Try eclairs, try Paris breast, see what else you can make with the equipment you have instead of branching into something completely different that requires all new equipment. Otherwise, you'll accumulate a ton of junk. Our last category is electric appliances. Pureeing machines. Here is the order in which I bought mine and I don't regret it. The cheapest one is a hand blender, also known as immersion blender. It's cheap, small and easy to wash, and you can do so many tasks with it. Smoothies, soups, sauces, and even herbal purees like pesto if you put your ingredients into a 2-cup Pyrex measure. The only downside is that it doesn't produce the smoothest puree if you are using fibrous ingredients like asparagus, and you might need to strain your puree through a fine mesh strainer if you want to get even close to restaurant results. The food processor. Here are my biggest uses for it. Large batches of coarse purees like pesto, romesco, and mushroom dexel. It would take a bit longer, but you could totally get away with an immersion blender for those. Pie dough and pasta dough. Here it really depends on which dough recipe you're using, but they tend to be optimized for a particular machine, and many of them are optimized for a processor. Grating and shredding. This feature is particularly useful if you don't have a mandolin. Vitamix. What can I say about the best blender in the world? If you never want to strain your purees again, get a Vitamix. There's really nothing like it. There is no other way to get a restaurant quality soup. The only thing I don't like about it is that getting thick purees out of the bottom is hard. So if I have a small batch of something, thick, that doesn't need to be perfectly smooth, I still use an immersion blender. Instant Pot. I love it for stocks, beans and grains. No, I don't love it for meat, but I know some other people do. Stand mixer. I know people use theirs for all sorts of things, but here's what I use mine for. Yeast doughs, pâte à choux, though you could use a hand mixer or food processor for that, whipped cream, whipped egg whites, and rolling out pasta using an attachment. I don't have a mixer to recommend with no reservations. A few months ago I got a new mixer, KitchenAid Pro, but I need to live with it for a while to be able to give you a good review. I think that's about it. The links for most of these things are below. Here are more thought-provoking culinary videos for you to check out, and if you are ever in the Boston area, maybe I'll see you in one of my classes.